We're sitting in the Havana International Airport here in Cuba, about to head back after a fantastic trip to Cuba. And before we head out, I wanted to give you an overview of the internet and Wi-Fi situation here in Cuba and our experience traveling in the Havana area. So internet is one of those things, kind of like currency and money, that's changed a lot in recent years, and things can continue to change in the future. I'm sure we're recording this video in February of 2023, so give it a year or two and I'm sure this stuff will have changed. In recent years, the country has opened up with internet data quite a bit more. So it used to be there'd just be a very small number of specific public Wi-Fi areas where people could come and connect to the Wi-Fi. You would see groups of people all connecting to the Wi-Fi in different parks and places like that in Havana. These days you see way more people on their phones using internet data, and internet connection has increased rapidly throughout the country. Our plan, what we did while we were here in Havana, was to buy SIM cards ahead of time. This is definitely what I would recommend. So we used a company, we'll link to it in the description below so you can find all the info. We ordered ahead online. We got a 6 gig SIM card for $30 US. And then when we came, we went into the shop and they installed it and everything for us, and everything went very smoothly. I will say you want to make sure your phone is unlocked and able to use an international SIM card. We had a situation where one of ours was unlocked and one was not, and so we couldn't use it on one of the phones. So make sure you have an unlocked phone that can use an international SIM card so you can switch those out. So I would definitely recommend ordering that ahead of time. It was $30 for 6 gigs. We actually ended up hotspotting off one of our phones to connect our computers and other devices as well, because the internet data from the phone was faster than the Wi-Fi. On the topic of Wi-Fi, we were staying at a Casa Particulares that we booked through Airbnb, so just a Cuban person's house, and she did have Wi-Fi at the house. So there are specific places and houses that can get like a Wi-Fi card, and then they're able to provide Wi-Fi for tourists coming in. Not everywhere does that, so you want to make sure, if it's important to you to have internet, make sure that you check with the Airbnb host or wherever it is you're staying before then. If you're at one of the bigger, nicer, more established hotels, they usually have Wi-Fi in public spaces and not in the individual rooms. So you'll have to go to like a public space, and I've read a lot of reviews at those hotels where people say that it was annoying. They kind of constantly had to reconnect every day and it was kind of frustrating. So that is something to be aware of if you're at one of the larger, nicer hotels. We actually were pretty happy with the Wi-Fi situation at our house. It was not real fast, but it worked consistently. But as I said, the data from the phone that we hotspotted with actually was a little faster, so we ended up using that a lot. And then used that a lot when we were out and about as well. So the cell phone data, the SIM card that we bought, worked great kind of all throughout Havana. Occasionally there would be kind of dead spots, but for the most part it worked very well, and we were really happy with the coverage. One thing to mention, since we're sitting at the airport right now, is that there's no Wi-Fi that you can connect to here at the airport. So you're going to want to set up things like a taxi pickup or a way to get from the airport into wherever you're staying ahead of time before you arrive in the country. That's what we did. So then the person who was picking us up, the taxi driver, took us actually to the SIM card shop as well, because our Airbnb host had set all that up for us. It was $25 to get from the airport to downtown in the old city Havana where we were staying. So you definitely want to keep that in mind and make sure you set up as much of that stuff ahead of time as possible, because until you get that SIM card and data set up on your phone, there's no way to communicate with anyone when you first land here in Havana. So that's kind of an overview of how the internet works. Oh, one thing to mention with the Wi-Fi at the Airbnb was it did cost, but it was only about $1 US for 10 hours of Wi-Fi, so it was incredibly cheap to use the Wi-Fi there. So the cost is very, very minimal on that. And then, like I said, it was about $30 for the 6 gig SIM card that we ordered ahead of time. So we'll have a link in the description to that SIM card site that we used to order ahead. We were really happy with that and it worked great. But just another thing you want to plan ahead, there's always more you want to plan for when coming to Cuba. Certainly as an American, there's a lot of things that you need to figure out. We have other videos on kind of an overview of our time and general tips and tricks, and then also a video specifically about the currency and the way that money works here in Cuba as well that we'll link to in the description, so you can check all of that out. Thanks for watching and have fun in Cuba.